Jean-Frédéric Schaub. I teach in Paris, in France, in the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales, which means the advanced school for social sciences and humanities. And I have been hired at the UHSS in 1996, and I'm currently a full professor and director of a large excellency laboratory about social sciences and politics. I was happy to be a fellow at the King Juan Carlos Chair in the spring 2015, and previously I had a very strong relationship with Jane Burbank and Fred Cooper, and I also taught with Professor Ada Ferrer in Havana in Cuba, and she was my sponsor as an applicant for the chair. It was so, as far as I remember, a very, very cold winter in New York, and in fact I had to postpone my coming to the US because the airports were closed, but I began my semester very happily at the time. As a chair at the King Juan Carlos, I taught 2 courses, the required graduate seminar, but I wanted to teach undergraduate students at NYU just because my experience teaching in the US was that in general undergraduate students are extremely exciting for foreign professors and teachers, and this undergraduate class was really thrilling to me, and we had a very good time with the students. I offered a class about the compared history of Hispanic monarchy and French monarchy in early modern times, and so I could bring together Spanish history and French history, and I think it was extremely exciting for all the crew. And I also began teaching in NYU a graduate seminar that I continue in France about race and racial categories in early modern history. And my memory of this period was very, very, very nice, also because I could convey at NYU a symposium on race studies. But what was apparently very interesting for the American friends and colleagues was the fact that the way European scholars from France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, I brought together at the King Juan Carlos Center, offered a slightly different profile of specialists on race than the average historians interested in this topic in the US. So the feedback of this symposium was very good. Well, the chair gave me also the very, very happy opportunity to present a couple of lectures on 2, let's say, tricky questions. The first one was about anti-Semitism in the nationalist tradition of the Basque Country in Spain from the 16th to the 20th century. And the second one was about an hypothesis to understand the politics in the Soviet Union in after the Civil War in terms of state racism. And I was very thrilled and very anxious with this second lecture, because some of my colleagues, serious specialists in the history of Russia and Soviet Union, came to hear my lecture, and afterwards some of them told me that they fully agree with my argument, and it was an incredible relief, because I was very, very, very anxious. Because this is not my specialty. As you know, I'm a specialist in Spanish history, not in Russian history. And of course, to come to New York in springtime supposes some unexpected issues. For example, uh, I began being extremely frustrated because the blizzard made it impossible to me to land in New York at the scheduled time. So, as far as I remember, my first two classes, graduate and undergraduate, were cancelled just because JFK was closed. And the other memory I have about cold in New York compared to Paris was that one day I was very excited to watch a movie that was shown at King Juan Carlos Center on Birobidzhan, the Far Eastern Soviet Republic for the Jews. The movie was really very interesting, but something happened with the heat system in the building. So it was by night, and it was in winter in New York, and progressively the temperature of the room was colder and colder and colder, and it was very realistic because it was about Siberia, and the room was so freezy that progressively all the public was discreetly leaving the room, and I suppose that at the very end nobody went until the end of the movie. But that's that's kind of thing that only happened in New York. For me, the most impressive impact of this invitation as a fellow at the chair, King Juan Carlos, was the fact that afterwards, sponsored by professors Ed Berenson, Larry Wolff, and Barbara Weinstein, I had the opportunity to be a global distinguished visiting professor at NYU History Department for 3 years. This was, of course, a fantastic experience to me in terms of teaching and in terms of intellectual discussion with colleagues from different horizons, not only about specialists in Spanish and Latin American history, but also in other fields. And it was the beginning of a personal relationship, professional relationship and discussion in particular, and co-teaching with Professor Rebecca Goetz and with Professor Sinclair Thompson, who were also visiting professors at my institution. And Rebecca Goetz went to the USSS, Barbara Weinstein also, and Professor Sinclair Thompson was also invited to come to Paris, but the pandemic made it impossible for the moment. But I very much hope to have him to Paris as soon as possible to continue our co-teaching. Among the different topics I'm used to teach, one is the most sensitive, is the history of the formation of racial categories and politics in early modern West and Western colonies from the 15th to the 18th century. And my experience is, in spite of what seems to be very recognized reality in the academia, it is really possible to explain these very sensitive questions with exactly the same arguments and the same ideas, no matter if you are in the US, no matter if you are in Japan or in France or in Spain or in Italy, if and only if you are patient enough to explain your point of view and to put this question in the freezer of academic explanation and not activist explanation. And so it is an effort to speak in a cooler way on these very burning topics. And if you do so, you don't have to change your argument depending where you are teaching. And this is a very grateful experience to me. And of course, I'm extremely grateful to the whole team of the King Juan Carlos chair, about the colleagues who decided to made my application successful. And a special thank to Laura Turegano, because along this long semester, she was particularly helpful for every kind of issues related to integration into the NYU system, and it's one of my very good memories of this period. 2015, the year I spent time at NYU King Juan Carlos Center, was the year I published my book on the race as a political reality. And due to my invitation in the US, I think it made possible the fact that this book is now available at Princeton University Press. And that's another reason, very strong reason, to be very grateful with King Juan Carlos Center and with NYU.